Zealand unveiled her latest federal budget today. It projects a deficit about $10 billion higher than forecast. CBC's Emily Brass brings us local reaction to the budget in just a moment. But first, Rafi Boudjikanian breaks down the budget highlights.
This government's seventh budget, the finance minister is finding something to smile about.
I am so proud to announce the creation of a new Canadian dental care plan.
With a $13 billion investment over 5 years to back it up. To qualify, Canadians will need to make less than $90,000 a year, something the NDP had wanted for a long time, but not all opposition parties are happy. The Conservatives are voting against it.
Everything in this budget will make it more expensive to eat, heat, and house yourself.
A big part of what the government is spending is in clean tech. $21 billion over the next 5 years, $80 billion by 2034, encouraging private sector investment in revamping the electricity grid, also for more carbon capture and clean hydrogen.
I really believe we are at a turning point. President Biden was here in Ottawa on Friday. He said this is an inflection point of the kind that you encounter every 5 or 6 generations. A failure to put forward a comprehensive, effective, and adequately financed plan to build the clean economy of the 21st century would mean consigning Canada to deindustrialization.
Money targeted to traditionally male-dominated industries. Some observers say the cash should have come with strings attached to help women in the workforce, same as what the USA is doing with its Inflation Reduction Act.
Where did the feminist government of Canada go? We're not even mimicking everything that Joe Biden put in the IRA. For example, in the IRA, when they say, yeah, we'll give you money to pivot towards green energy, you make sure you provide childcare for your workers. It's not there.
The government is still pointing to inexpensive childcare across the country by 2026. And this year, for low-income Canadians, it's also introducing a one-time grocery rebate worth $2.5 billion overall. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
And government estimates suggest roughly 11 million low-income Canadians will qualify for those grocery rebates that Rafi was just talking about. People in Winnipeg's North End say the one-time payments won't come close to meeting their needs in this tough economy. CBC's Emily Brass reports.
Winnipeg North's one of the poorest federal ridings in Canada, and more people are relying on the Bear Clan Food Bank to get by. The federal grocery rebate could offer them a boost, but is it enough?
Welfare's only giving $508, $500 for the rent. Leaves me with $8. I can't buy. That's why the food bank's helping me. I never did it before, you know.
Richard Jowett lost his job of 24 years and spent 5 months homeless. If the federal budget goes through, he should get a one-time payment of up to $234. So should Audrey Copley, who's on disability and finds herself at the food bank for the first time in years.
I like to go to the stores and buy food and stuff, but some prices are high.
A lot of people in the neighborhood work for minimum wage. Maurice Leahy says he's surviving by the skin of his teeth.
I don't feel like a person should have to work long hours for low pay just to maintain their basic necessities. So, I mean, there's obviously not a lot of work being done to combat those things, not enough work anyway.
With high food costs and high demand, the Bear Clan says it's struggling to keep people fed.
We make it stretch.
Operations manager Roberta DeLorme says not only have food bills spiked, so have the rents. As a single mother, she says families need more help.
Single moms are struggling too. They don't have any other means, and they've got to choose. Either they're going to pay the hydro bill or they're going to eat this month.
The grocery rebate would give a couple with 2 children up to $467. DeLorme says the government needs to dig deeper and find long-term solutions.
Like, you can't have it where the wage is low and the housing's so high, right? Like, even food going up, like, that's huge.
And as far as those grocery rebates go, people on the front lines like Dallas Woods says it's just a drop in the bucket.
I think that it should be not just one time. It should help out more, because I was one of those people that used to stand in this group before I started working here. And being on the other side is totally different than working here. I really feel that it should be something every day for them, until they can get on their feet. Because there are lots of resources, but come on, not resources for houses and for them to live in. That's why there's so many homeless people today, is because there's not enough money given out.
Meanwhile, the food bank will keep stretching to keep people from going hungry. Emily Brass, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Three customers of a Manitoba contractor say they didn't get what they'd paid for. Now, two of them are suing the company. The I-Team's Caroline Bargout reports.
There's a large amount of mold underneath this window.
This was supposed to be Calvin and Alexis Bruno's dream home. Instead, they say the new build has been a nightmare.
If we would have moved in here, we were told within 6 months the mold would have started eating through the walls.
The Brunos bought a piece of land in Tyndall, Manitoba in 2021 and were told the builder who would construct their new home would be Steve Collins Contracting Limited. They have a 13-year-old daughter who requires a wheelchair, and their home had too many stairs. Partway through construction, a building inspector discovered mold had developed in the crawl space and issued 2 stop work orders until it was removed.
With the type of mold, we could have got extremely sick from it. Anyone that's immune compromised, like my daughter, there's potential she could actually die from it.
He alleges the builder didn't initially put up a vapor barrier on the house to prevent moisture from getting in, and by the time he did, it was too late.
The Brunos aren't the only ones who have issues with this builder. 2 lawsuits were filed against Steve Collins Contracting this year. In the first one, a Winnipeg man says he paid to have a cabin built at Hillside Beach, but a year later, it's not finished and riddled with deficiencies.
Bulges are everywhere. We've got bulges there, here, there.
Marco Costantini and his wife are suing Steve Collins and his company for what they allege is shoddy work he did on their cottage in Hillside Beach. Their lawsuit outlines a long list of deficiencies, including claims mold was forming on exposed wood in the crawl space because of a lack of water drainage and vapor barrier.
He's not a reasonable person and doesn't feel like anything has been done wrong. And I don't want to put my family in a home that's not structurally safe. And nobody down the line is taking any accountability.
Steve Collins didn't agree to an interview, but in a statement of defense says the Costantinis made changes and additions to the project which increased the cost. And he claims there were issues getting construction permits, which also led to delays. As for his work, Collins says the construction was carried out in accordance with the specifications contained in the engineered drawings, and he denies all the allegations and responsibility for any deficiencies. A Manitoba woman is also suing Collins and his company for allegedly taking $250,000 and only pouring cement for a sub-basement and installing concrete blocks before abandoning the project. Collins hasn't filed a statement of defense in that case. Costantini wants to see Manitoba laws that protect consumers in cases like this so that people don't have to incur more expenses filing lawsuits to recoup what they've lost.
Things need to change in the industry. I just don't see how this can continue going on with nobody taking accountability, nobody making sure that the homeowners are being protected.
Costantini met the Brunos for the first time last week and says they've bonded over their shared experiences. The Brunos say they plan to sue Collins' company, but in the meantime, they've hired another contractor to fix all the deficiencies and hopes their family will be able to move into their home this year. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Winnipeg.
If you have a tip for the CBC I-Team, email iteam@cbc.ca or call their confidential tip line 204-788-3744. Manitoba's next provincial election is just over 6 months away. A poll commissioned by the Winnipeg Free Press shows the race may be tightening up. CBC's Bartley Kivas explains.
Wab Kinew and the NDP have led every poll in Manitoba for the past 2 years, and right now, the New Democrats are still in front. A probe research poll conducted earlier this month suggests the NDP enjoys the support of 44% of Manitobans, followed by the PCs at 38%, the Liberals at 9%, and other parties, including the Greens and Keystone, are in the low single digits. But the size of the NDP lead is down. What was an 11-point margin for the New Democrats over the Progressive Conservatives in December 2022 is reduced to a 6-point lead. Probe President Scott Mackay says this may be more than a little bump.
To be statistically fair, it is all within the margin of error at this point. But we do see what could very well be a trend because it's happening at both ends. The NDP is getting a little bit weaker since our last poll, and the Conservatives seem to be picking that up.
Mackay surmises the provincial budget may have something to do with it. It offered tax relief and spending hikes in every government department. In a statement, Premier Heather Stephenson says Manitobans will warm up to the PCs as they get to know the party better. Opposition leader Wab Kinew says Manitobans already know the Tories well enough.
For everyone in Manitoba who does want to see a change in government, who want to see our province move on from the PCs, this is a reminder that our team, the Manitoba NDP, is the way to go if you want to make that change.
To that end, the NDP are getting some help from Dougald Lamont and the Manitoba Liberals. Political scientist Chris Adams says the lackluster Liberal showing in this poll bodes well for the NDP because the Liberals tend to steal votes mainly from the New Democrats.
The Liberals being down means that a lot of people on the center-left are moving completely over to the NDP, which means that that's not good news for the PCs.
A lot can happen before the election. Manitobans are slated to go to the polls on October 3rd. Bartley Kivitz, CBC News, Winnipeg.
RCMP are investigating the death of a 15-year-old girl in Thompson. They say they got a call late last night reporting that the teen hadn't returned home. She'd left the Thompson Recreational Community Center grounds earlier in the evening with friends who'd all gotten home safely. Her body was found this morning here in a dog park off of Baffin Crescent. Overnight temperatures in Thompson's dropped as low as -24 last night. An autopsy will be conducted to determine what killed her. And Winnipeg police have arrested a man in connection with the death of a 23-year-old woman. Star Alicia Thomas was found with severe injuries during a fire at the Adnac Apartments in the West End. That was back in January. She later died of her injuries. 26-year-old Joy Robertson-LaCoy has been charged with second-degree murder. Police believe Thomas and Joey LaCoy knew each other. A Manitoba family has lost nearly everything in a house fire. But thanks to their quick-thinking 12-year-old daughter, their children are alive. As Brittany Greenslade reports, well, the family knows it will be a long road to rebuilding their life. They are thankful they'll be doing it together.
It's a tough sight for the Newfelds to take in. Walking through their Le Broquerie home just days after it was ravaged by a fire.
The fire was so hot that it melted the glass above the mirror in the washroom, I mean, like of the light fixture. And that takes some serious heat to melt.
Toys melted, clothes and furniture ruined, everything covered in black soot. Their memories burned to a crisp.
Everything is basically destroyed.
But what was saved matters so much more. Their children made it out alive.
I was shaking. I was legit worst nightmare. I can't even describe it.
Their 12-year-old daughter Emily was home alone with her 8- and 4-year-old brothers when the fire broke out in the basement. She saw flames coming from the bathroom.
At that point, I was super panicked and scared. So I ran upstairs and I grabbed both of my siblings and my 2 animals and went out and called 911 right away.
Nothing else mattered. She says it's what she was taught in a babysitting course she took last June.
Not to worry about your stuff, just to worry about lives, because lives matter more than things, because things can be replaceable.
Unfortunately, one of the family cats didn't make it out. The fire took less than 10 minutes to overtake the whole basement. The fire department says it was sparked by a plug-in air freshener that ignited a nearby towel.
It was a horrific sight. Seeing the basement, my heart dropped. Damages is one thing, just thinking what if Emily would have acted differently. Literally saved their lives, because she knew exactly what to do.
Now the family is staying with in-laws and starting from scratch. But the small room the kids are sharing is not only filled with love and gratefulness, but donations.
grocery donations, clothing donations. We had a man from Merchant reach out to us, and he donated like a brand new queen bed and frame from his son that he just lost months ago.
Well, the family knows it will take time to get back on their feet. Time doesn't matter because they'll be doing it all together. Brittany Greenslade, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well done, Emily. A bill before the Senate aims to help streamline cancer care coverage for firefighters in Canada. Right now, that coverage varies by province. Manitoba has had coverage for occupational cancers since 2002. But as CBC's Riley Lachuk reports, firefighters say hurdles still remain.
It's a career Leah Kozlowski has loved for the past 3 decades. A captain in the fire department at Winnipeg's International Airport, she started her career as a structural firefighter, battling fires at homes, warehouses, and other buildings.
I love my job today as I did back when I started in 1994, right? So I love it. It's a great career. It's very rewarding.
But that past caught up to Kozlowski in January of 2020 when she joined a grim and growing list of firefighters diagnosed with occupational-related cancers.
I was diagnosed with bladder cancer, went through surgery, had the tumor removed, had another little tumor form about 8 months after.
It's no secret that firefighting is a dangerous occupation. Smoke, fumes, and substances like asbestos prompted the World Health Organization to list firefighting as a Group 1 carcinogen last year. Neil McMillan is with the International Association of Firefighters and says last year alone, a staggering 95% of firefighter on-duty deaths in Canada were linked to cancer, not fire.
But whether your cancer was deemed job-related and eligible for workers' compensation depends on where you are. Manitoba was the first province to recognize certain cancers as related to firefighting back in 2002. Now 19 cancers are recognized. In comparison, Quebec recognizes the fewest at just 9.
A private member's bill sponsored by Quebec MP Sherry Romanato, now before the Senate, could standardize the list of cancers across Canada. But she says it's more about sharing research.
At the end of the day, it'll be up to provinces and territories to determine what works for them in their jurisdictions.
You can't have each province in their own little silos. This is a Canada-wide problem and a Canada-wide issue, so we need to all be on the same page.
Back at work and now cancer-free, Kozlowski now educates firefighters about prevention. She says record keeping, which is key, is still lacking, especially in rural areas.
There is still barriers. I've talked to a lot of rural firefighters in the province here. They're getting denied coverage.
She says while there is still more work to do, talking about the risks has led to progress.
When I started in 1994, there was no talk about cancer. We didn't know then what we know now. Okay, so there are prevention and awareness campaigns that are starting. It's a great career. Don't let that ever stop you. I get to go home at the end of the day and feel like I've accomplished something.
Riley Lachuk, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Meteorologist John Sauder joins us, rubbing his hands because it's chilly in the studio, and it's even chillier out there.
Do you know we haven't been above zero day or night in March yet, this March?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we've been close a couple of times. Minus 0.8 a couple of times, but that's not enough, right?
That's not enough. That's not zero.
I have some more numbers to show you about March and how chilly it is. So temperature not getting above zero all month. And the last time that happened was a long time ago, 1899, which, funny enough, was the coldest March on record, but it was way colder than the March we're experiencing right now. March 1899, the average temperature, so that's when you take all the daytime highs and nighttime lows and add them all up and just make an average out of that. That was minus 16.1. This year so far, our March is at minus 11.0. Got a couple days to go yet. March 2013 was pretty close to that number of 2023's March, but March 2014 was actually colder than this March will turn out to be. It's just that during that March, we did get above zero. So you get the drift. It's, you know, it'd be nice to get a +2 or something. I do have a +2 in my long-range forecast. I'll show you that in a second. -8, that was bang on the number today. West winds at 19. The winds will be much stronger tomorrow. And yes, the upper level pattern still has us in the upper trough, but that will change. This upper ridge, the warmer air out to the west of us, is going to try and get into the western edge of the province tomorrow. Wouldn't be surprised to see temps getting a little closer to zero in some locations. We stay with that a little bit on Thursday. We get a bit of a setback on Friday. The colder ridge starts to sink into the south a bit, and then as we get into the weekend, that ridge really starts to build in, and our warmest day in the next 7 or 8 will be Sunday, but it will likely be a messy temperature above zero. This cloud in the north today has been giving up a little bit of snow. Not much going on in the south, though. We've got clear skies that will stay with us into the overnight period. That little bit of light snow I just talked about is moving out to the east tonight. We got lots of sunshine tomorrow, might be a little bit of cloud in the afternoon. Another band of snow moving from the Arctic, a low pressure system moving into northern Manitoba. So Lynn Lake, Brochet, Thompson, and then eventually out into the east, we'll see some snow, but it's a pretty dry, bright, and windy day here across southern Manitoba. And then another system sets up just to the north of us for Thursday and may supply us with a few flurries late in the day. Okay, let's talk winds. Northwest shifting to west by morning, and then on into the afternoon tomorrow, we get some strong winds. In some cases, gusting over 40 in western Manitoba. Here in the Red River Valley in northwestern Ontario, we're looking at winds at about 30 to 40 kilometers per hour, and right out of the southwest in the afternoon. Tonight, though, light winds, another -20 under clear skies. That's what your morning looks like. In the afternoon, we do get warmer, but the winds are at about 30 to 40 out of the southwest. So it's going to be a bit of a wind factoring in, making it feel cooler. These numbers are closer to the seasonal normal, which is 4, but we're dry and we've got plenty of sunshine Friday and a -2 Saturday, even warmer Sunday, and I'll show you that in the 7-day forecast, Janet.
Okay, John, thanks. Still looking for that +2. What if every bus ride you took turned out to be the highlight of your day? It would be if Winnipeg Transit driver Joseph Fulmer had his way. Fulmer takes pride in making passengers smile while also making sure they get to their destination safely. He says he has one rule for himself at work: to be kind to everyone he meets. CBC was delighted recently to spend time with Joseph Fulmer on his number 18 North Main bus route.
Always get you to school, no matter what. Welcome. 18 downtown. Welcome. Are you heading back to school? Absolutely. Gotta get you back to school, girls. I'm Joseph Earl Fulmer. It's always a bumpity bump this section, folks. Hold your seats. I drive transit operator for Winnipeg Transit, City of Winnipeg. I get a gallon of root beer, a half gallon of ice cream, and I would float down the road, folks. Oh yeah. A&W, best root beer, always.
When I first see him pulling up, I say, oh, I got him this time. It makes the ride more enjoyable. It makes you smile.
Happiness is infectious.
Just a happy spirit. Yeah, it just changes the atmosphere when you get on the bus.
Welcome. Good afternoon. First of all, I always remember I'm just the journey to their destination, and creating a positive environment in that journey always comes back to me more than tenfold easily. Welcome, sir. Good afternoon.
I know that voice.
Yes, and I know you. I always think first, anyone I haven't met, a stranger, no, they're a friend I just haven't met yet. By just acknowledging, smiling, acknowledging, making eye contact, folks, changes the world. And suddenly you have power and influence and a friend.
Usually when you have a bad day, he makes you really happy. Like
it changes like a snap.
I love this area of Main Street, folks. It's alive, it's real, it's always in your face. There's always hope. I always choose consciously a choice to pull the joy forward, because we can all choose negatives that we could be hanging on, but it's pulling the joy forward always. You're good, sir? Love is in the air, everyone and everywhere. The love bus, it always happens, folks. Connections made every day. You need to go home to your family, to your loved ones, get to work, visit a friend. I get you there safe and sound. As all bus drivers do, we get you there, folks. Number one, remember that.
He's just one amazing guy. You just see him coming in every day, and it's always like a highlight of my day.
The best gig, the best fun, safety always. I could run till I'm 80, folks, easily. We have the call for Dufferin and Maine, but it's about public service, paycheck and then pension if I live that long. So it's safe, fun, and on the run. Watch your step, always at that rear door, please. I have the greatest empathy, sympathy of all my passengers, whatever state they're in. It's my obligation duty to get them again to their destination. Old Market Square, the Exchange District. For me, it brings joy. Somebody who may not have ever smiled to anybody suddenly says, thank you, have a good day back. Yes, a great bus, wonderful passengers. Thank you. I could be your hero if only for one ride. I'll see you ahead in my headlights, and I'll always stop right by your side.
Still ahead, searching for answers. People in Nashville, Tennessee struggle to understand why a woman shot and killed children and adults at a school yesterday. A story of mourning next. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Another mass shooting at a school in the United States has led to renewed calls for stricter gun control. 3 students, all of them 9 years old, and 3 adult staff members were killed at a private Christian school in Nashville, Tennessee yesterday. CBC's Matra Geber-Salasa has the latest.
The guns used to kill 3 students and 3 school staff were purchased legally. That's what we learned today. The suspect, Audrey Hale, owned 7 guns in total, police said, and 3 of those were used in this shooting. Police say Hale's parents thought there was only 1 gun and that it had been sold off. These details come as new video was released today. Cameras at the school show the suspect arriving and getting into the school by shooting through the glass doors.
3!
The body camera footage from police shows officers arriving at the school. They find the front door locked and get in with a key. It's on the 2nd floor. They confront the suspect. The whole thing is over in minutes, but there were already several victims. The students that died are Evelyn Dickhouse, Haley Scruggs, and William Kinney. And the staff that were killed include Cynthia Peak, a substitute teacher, Mike Hill, a custodian, and Catherine Coons, the head of the school. Police still say there's no evidence that the victims were targeted specifically, just that the school was. Hale was a former student, and the police chief said investigators learned this from Hale's parents.
She was under care, doctor's care, for an emotional disorder. Law enforcement knew nothing about the treatment she was receiving.
A motive hasn't been determined yet, but police say they have the shooter's manifesto. And as the investigation continues, the call for stricter gun restrictions has been renewed.
Why in God's name do we allow these weapons of war in our streets and at our schools?
President Biden wants Congress to pass an assault weapons ban. As the politicians continue to disagree, this community and many more continue to mourn the many victims lost to gun violence. Magda Gebre-Salasa, CBC News, Washington.
A police officer in Quebec has died after being attacked by a man with a knife. The officer, Maureen Bro, and her colleague were in the process of arresting the man at the time. Paula Diane Perez has more.
Sirens piercing through the night in a quiet town. A neighbor says it all happened so quickly. Officers were trying to arrest a man for allegedly uttering threats. 2 were stabbed. A 20-year veteran of the provincial police, Sergeant Maureen Bro, died of her injuries in the hospital.
She is a mother of 2 children, and also his husband is also a police officer from the Sûreté du Québec.
The suspect was shot and killed by officers called as backup. Provincial police say he is 35-year-old Isaac Brouillard-Lessard. According to court records, he's had 6 run-ins with law enforcement. In 5 of those, he was found not criminally responsible. Last year, he was released on conditional discharge and given 2 years of community service for an assault charge. In Louisville, people are reeling. A social worker who's been checking on neighbors in the street says it's a small community and people are worried. The building is taped up by police as it's now become a crime scene. Some residents were temporarily moved to hotels. Others are staying with friends and family. Bo is the 7th police officer to die in the line of duty in Canada in the last 6 months. In Quebec, the last one was in 2017. Quebec's independent police investigating unit are piecing together what happened. Montreal police are also conducting a parallel criminal investigation. Paula Diane Perez, CBC News, Louisville.
This has been another day of demonstrations in France. Protesters have been in the streets again, rallying against changes to the country's pension plan. Most of the protests have been peaceful, but as CBC's Chris Brown shows us, there are a number of violent clashes with police.
Paris stinks of burning garbage mixed with tear gas, as yet again what started off as peaceful demonstrations degenerated into nasty confrontations with police. Those dressed all in black were mostly troublemakers looking for a fight. Not the peaceful, noisy union members and their supporters who paraded through the city a few hours earlier. trying to force the French government to repeal its pension changes. Those changes would make people work 2 extra years until they're 64 before they can start collecting.
I can be psychologist until 64. It's crazy. It's a very hard job, you know.
But while pensions may have triggered this backlash, the anti-government sentiment has now evolved into much broader complaints.
A lot of my friends are having burnouts and everything. We are working for less money than our parents. We are not sure that we can afford to have children and everything. And we are angry about this.
In a country famous for starting revolutions, this could be the beginning of another, one that changes work-life balance, says this expert.
Work has been a big issue. Reorganizing work so that the life, the personal life can have a bigger place. I think we have our noisy way to say there is a revolution going on at work.
The pension legislation has already been approved by Parliament, however, and President Emmanuel Macron has not indicated he's open to reconsidering it. The unions say they will not relent either, and they're calling for yet another day of protests across France in the first week of April.
The government might have hoped that all the burning garbage, the violence, and scenes like this with thousands of riot police might have turned public opinion against the protests. But there's no sign that's happening.
The demonstrations have caused severe disruptions, closing schools, tourist attractions, transportation hubs, and countless businesses as both sides try to exhaust the other into capitulating. Chris Brown, CBC News, Paris.
The head of Walmart Canada says even though the price of food has been growing for months now, his store isn't profiting from it. The full story next. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Walmart Canada is the latest grocery chain to have its executives grilled during the House Agriculture Committee hearing. The head of Walmart Canada was there. While being questioned by MPs yesterday, he denied the company has been price gouging. Anis Haderi has the details.
The CEO of Walmart Canada, the fourth grocery head to testify in front of the Federal Agriculture Committee. It's looking into food inflation and why it's so high in Canada these days. Weeks ago, politicians heard from Loblaws, Metro and Sobeys. This time around, Walmart, an American giant that is a big player in the Canadian supermarket world. The CEO says his company actually saw profits go down recently, at least when it comes to food.
Walmart Canada is not attempting to profit from these inflationary conditions. In fact, Walmart Canada's gross profit rate for its food business actually declined last year.
Politicians on this committee couldn't get all the specifics they wanted, with Walmart saying its sales numbers in Canada are competitively sensitive. It's similar messaging to the Canadian executives testifying earlier. All insist their stores aren't profiteering and that everyone's costs have gone up, including retailers. Experts say that's possible.
I hit on the fact that they're paying more. Their inflation for what the goods that they're paying rose faster than the inflation that we as consumers saw.
Certainly, costs have gone up right across the supply chain. So I can certainly see that if supplies are tight and they're having to pay a lot more for supplies, then that's feasible. But again, without seeing the data, it's pretty hard to verify if that would be the case.
Retailers, including Walmart, have said they are providing at least some of that data to the Federal Competition Bureau. It's working on a report about grocery prices in Canada, but that's not due out until June. Anis Haderi, CBC News, Calgary.
Meteorologist John Sauder joins us once again. I don't know if you've been seeing this on social media, but I've been seeing stuff about planets aligning.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Well, you know, there are 5 planets that are lining up, sort of. It's kind of being overplayed a little bit because some of them you're not going to see without a telescope. I can explain. I've got a picture here to show you where to look. First, let's start at the bottom, right along the horizon. Jupiter. Well, Jupiter's big, it's bright. It's pretty low, though, on the horizon as we look to the west after sunset tonight. And, you know, it may just be bright enough to get through some of the water vapor, dust in the atmosphere at that low altitude, but it might be obscured by a tree, a house. Mercury is really dim. It's almost in the, you know, really hard to see category and also would be obscured. Venus, that's an easy one, right there in the center. You'll see that, but right next to it is another planet, Uranus, which is way out there. It's so far away. You need a telescope, and it doesn't even fall under the category of difficult to see. It's not even that good. And then, of course, you've got Mars. That's the red one. That's a little bit higher and closer to the moon. So if you look out there tonight, you will likely see something that looks like some planets. And you may see Jupiter and Venus, and certainly it will be something to see. But yeah, don't expect to see all 5 planets lining up like that and really putting on a show for you. All right, let's get to our temperatures. -8 in Winnipeg, downtown. We're at -7, -9 in Steinbach. And a lot of these temperatures are a full 13 to 15 degrees lower than the seasonal normal, which in southern Manitoba should be right around 4 degrees. By later this week, it'll be 5 degrees would be a normal. And these are the currents across the north where we've seen a little bit of light snow moving through Thompson, Gillam, and Churchill today. That's out of that cloud, nice and clear here in the south. So you will see some of those planets. We'll see a partly cloudy to clear sky and relatively cold here in northwestern Ontario. Kenora down to -18, same with Fort Francis. Here in Winnipeg, a low of -20. Outside the city, some -22s here, a -17 in Gimli. Back to the southwest, -24 in Brandon. I think that's the normal low in Brandon for about mid-February, really. So that's not fair at all. And then as we head to the north, we've got some colder numbers as well. A -18 in the Paw, a chance of evening light snow around Thompson, and still some flurries in the far north and the northeast. Then That ridge that's out to the west kind of nudges into part of northern Manitoba. So some +1s around Flin Flon, the Pas, a -3 in the Thompson area, and some afternoon flurries from a separate low that is going to drift out of the Arctic into northern Manitoba. Here in the south, it's more about the wind. Fairly sunny day, but winds gusting as high as 50 or 60 in the west. Here in the Winnipeg area, rest of the Red River Valley, more like 30 to 40. Emerson a little stronger, same with Steinbach. But again, lots of sunshine and several degrees warmer. Northwestern Ontario as well, with highs around -3 to -4 degrees.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
You know, after the snow melts, assuming the snow melts, many people will want to clean up their yards a bit. They might go grab a rake or even a leaf blower because, you know, many people use leaf blowers to clean up their yards. But for some Saskatchewan Polytechnic students, a leaf blower is more of a mode of transportation. Dane Patterson explains.
Carter Pierce is among the about a dozen students floating around the gym at Sask Polytech. He's a part of a first-year mechanical engineering technology class where students have spent about a month building the low-friction floating discs. They had to procure the materials, plywood and polystyrene foam, then design and construct them within set restrictions.
It was interesting. We were kind of skeptical about how it would work. We weren't sure, and we messed around with how much holes were in the inside.
There were 4 groups with varying sizes and techniques. So how do they work? The instructor explains.
The leaf blower essentially creates a pocket or cavity underneath the structure. So it inflates, and then it's an air cushion that gets pushed out underneath that apron or outside of that apron and provides the low friction environment for it to glide.
This was the first time the school has used this project in a class, and this week they were put to the test. Timing gates lined up along their path detected which were fastest down the lane. Students learned that depending on the size and build, some excelled down the ramp with more speed, others were better for hovering when someone sat on top.
It was probably the best one to ride. As soon as you're on it, you felt weightless and you didn't really have control. So you just kind of had someone there carrying you along, but it was definitely fun to ride.
The hovercrafts won't likely translate into a practical day-to-day use, but they give the students the hands-on experience the school is hoping to bring in earlier in their education. In this case, that's with building, buying, and the chance for boasting if they come out on top.
We had actually not much idea who's would do better. So there was kind of the tension at the start of whose group is going to do better.
Dane Patterson, CBC News, Saskatoon.
It just looks like fun, doesn't it? Something they'll never forget. Still ahead, a beloved South Osborne bookstore in Winnipeg is closing its doors. We're going to hear from the owner of Nerman's Books and Collectibles after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. A South Osborne bookstore in Winnipeg is now down to selling ladders and boxes of leftover books. The owner of Nerman's Books and Collectibles is retiring and officially closed the store Saturday. This week, Gary Nerman is still in there clearing out what little is left in the store. Here's what customers told us when we visited on its final day.
My name's Gary Nerman, and I own Nerman's Books. Today's the last day that we're open. We're having a dollar sale. All books are $1. All albums, CDs, etc. are $1. And yeah, but somewhere around 5 and 6 o'clock, we will cease to exist. We've been in this neighborhood since '95. We were across the street, and we moved over here in 2005. And the bookstore started as a hobby, so I guess I was in my basement probably in the late '80s working.
This is only my second time here. I just moved into the neighborhood this fall, so kind of sad. It's kind of peaceful. Like I like to just look around. Like it's a good way to spend your weekend.
There are a lot of books and magazines left over, probably 40,000. It's nothing different from what there was last week. It's just people have been coming in and buying what they like, but there's still a lot of very good books here. And if there's any charities out there, because we want to give the books to charity, we have a few coming in, but we're still going to have tens of thousands of books that we would like to give to good causes. It's nostalgic that it's coming to an end, but sort of coming to the end is not a bad thing. It's a change of life, right? So, and I'm looking forward to it.
I hope you have fun, Gary. Things have changed since Saturday when we shot that story, and now the shelves are all bare. The Facebook page for the store says it will remain open for the next few days from 10 to 5 just to sell the last few things. That lady in the white cardigan is 82-year-old Mary Smith at the Montreal Lake Cree Nation Winterfest in Saskatchewan over the weekend. She uses a walker normally, but she tossed it aside so she could compete in the jigging contest. Good for her. Guess what? She placed third in the ladies 50-plus category. Way to go. John has your 7-day forecast, and then we'll bring you your daily lift after the break. Stay with us.
Well, we do get a little bit warmer tomorrow, but pretty breezy. Southwest around 30 to 40 here in Winnipeg. A pretty dry pattern here until we get to the second half of the weekend. We get to +2 on Sunday. Likely some wet snow. I think we could even see some rain showers mixed in. And then Monday and Tuesday, we still have a chance of flurries both those days. It's a return to the roost for some of Vancouver's favorite springtime visitors.
The Pacific Great Blue Herons are back in Stanley Park for breeding season. Here's your daily lift. The park is home to one of the continent's largest urban colonies for these kind of herons. And people come from far and wide to see them. The herons have built about 90 nests this year, and experts say the fledglings will be vital to sustaining BC's heron population. Apparently, herons are considered an at-risk species in Canada. I had no idea.
I had no idea either.
There you are.
That's amazing photography, how close they can get with the camera and just you can see the feathers on the bird. It's just amazing.
Imagining something that large as well, flying up and actually nesting in a tree.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. Thank you for being with us tonight. John will be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow too. So we'll see you then.
Good night.
Good night.